Hello everyone, my name is Nicholas Gonzalez, and this is my final part 2 of my final project. Here I'm going to be giving security technologies recommendations and answering several different questions. So the project summary is to provide recommendations as to how to safely transfer personal data on a network, personal or business data, encode and or encrypt images, utilizing a secure API framework to access data externally. So basically from anywhere that you have a computer, how to use databases to store data in various locations, and ethical concerns and aspects in regards to exchanging personal data. So just a little bit about me. My name is Nicholas Gonzalez. I am from Chile. I moved between Chile and Canada multiple times, and I previously completed my business administration diploma at Georgian College. I have experience and knowledge in coding, encryption, and creating visualizations with data, which I have all learned throughout this semester of the Big Data Analytics program. So first question is, how can we transfer personal data securely within their network? So a company's network. So we have a couple options. We can use a managed file transfer. We can use a file transfer protocol or hypertext transfer protocol secure. Managed file transfer is basically just a way to transfer data securely between computers through a network such as the internet by using a software. So the company might have its own software, or you might need to get an external software in order to run that. Some other alternatives are file transfer protocol, as I said, or secure file transfer protocol. So that just adds an additional security layer to the transfer protocol. And an example that would just be using requiring a username and or password to gain access. Another one, as I said, is HTTPS. So it's widely known, HTTP on the internet, and then just the S part adds the security part to it, using transport security or TLS, and to basically just secure transfer communication. Some popular MFT softwares are Software Trust Map, FileZilla, IBM Aspera Cloud, Go Anywhere MFT, and OpenText Hightail or OpenText XM Fax. The one that we've used in class particularly is FileZilla. And when it comes to business, if it's a business that's trying to transfer personal data, it might be best to go with an actual software as opposed to just using HTTPS or just file transfer protocol. If you use an actual framework like FileZilla, you might just be a little bit more secure, and it's something that you can maybe even pay for to have different aspects that might not come from using free protocols. What security protocol is best for transferring personal files? So again, we can use HTTPS or even MFT again. However, if you have to pay for it, then it might not be best if it's just personal files. If we have to choose, it might be SFTP, which is similar to as we saw here, file transfer protocol. However, it just adds another layer of protection by using username and or password. Again, we can use HTTPS, which is widely used, and it's probably best either SFTP or HTTPS to use if it's just personal files and not company files and very private personal data. Can we encode and encrypt images? Images, sorry. Well, yeah, we can. We can use steganography, which is essentially just encrypting the image with. We can put messages in there, and then depending on just how complex a message or the encryption is, there's two different approaches that we can use. We can use least significant bit steganography, so LSB. It's fairly simple, but it can be decrypted as it's mentioned there, because it does encrypt the, as it says in the name, least significant bits, so the smaller bits in the entire bits of the image. So it's very simple, but at the same time, because it's simple, it can be decrypted. So if you want to use something a little bit more secure, we can use the discrete cosine transform coefficients. With this approach, essentially the noise or all the bits of the image don't really change. So it makes it more difficult for someone that's not supposed to understand the encryption to actually decrypt it. Another way is to make sure that your images are safe, not really encrypted, or it is encrypting. You're just not putting you're not really changing the bits. You're just using a watermark, trade watermark. So you can see that with a lot of different companies that have their own logos, so you have their trade watermark, and that basically just allows them to secure the images and know who it's owned by and who's sending them back and forth when they shouldn't be. Next question, we have our database cannot be moved. So the company cannot be the company data cannot be moved from the site, and we need to be able to access it externally using a secure API. So how can we do that? So here we just have a quick diagram of just what it might look like using an API, a secure API, and the architecture or the structure of it. So we have the API manager, we have the clients, which this company supports, and then we have the information that's being secured in the middle. And I will explain that. One way we can do this is using a JWT, so JSON Web Token. We can use this to secure the data by providing a unique token to the person that's trying to access it. So if we use Visual Studio Code to essentially code this token, we can then use Postman to actually get in there, use the token, and then use different functions such as get or post to actually gain access to the secure site. So we use JSON Web Token in Visual Studio Code, which there, if done properly, will give us a unique token, and we can then use that in Postman to actually be able to access a secure site. Next, we have can you recommend a secure framework for coding an API? Well, we can use ASP.NET Core. So this is a Microsoft, not package, but essentially just secure framework that can be used within Visual Studio Code. Again, that's what we've been using. So you can use that, as I said, in Visual Studio Code. And then what this will essentially do is that when we use a local host, it will specify that it needs authorization, or you need to be authenticated in order to access the information. So we can use this by using password and or username. There are other ways that we can use this. We can ask a specific question, for example, and date of birth, for example, and you can put the date of birth, and then this will give a layer of security in the framework for coding the API. And then if you do not answer it, or you get the wrong answer, you will be restricted from accessing the information, basically. On that side here, we can use Postman again to transfer and share data securely. It uses a REST client, so representational state transfer. We can do this by connecting Postman to Visual Studio Code, as mentioned previously, and use web requests to access data. And we can specify the request formats. Again, we can use get, post, put, or delete. Those are other functions that Postman has. Question 6 is, what data interchange format should we use while transferring data between locations? So it's not asking, we're not being asked here what the where we should be doing this. It's just asking the format of the data in order to exchange it between locations. So there's different formats of flat data files. We have JSON, XML, and CSV, and then down here we actually see the what each one stands for. So we have JavaScript object notation, extensible markup language, or comma separated values. However, if it's being transferred between locations specifically, XML is usually the best way because of its structure. So it's professional, if you want to say it, or very clean, neatly structured. So it can be easy to interpret and understand, especially if we're using large documents, and therefore can just be better overall to use when transfer between servers. How should we store our data in our main locations, or in our many locations, sorry? If you're using many locations and there's different people that are going to be accessing it, you can use an FTP client, file transfer protocol client, specifically FileZilla. So FileZilla allows anyone to upload and download files from your web hosting server. And you can actually use a FTP server where your coworkers or whoever want to access that information, or the folders, for example. You can have folders in there broken down into whatever data you need, and you can upload, edit, and download data files. So one example, as we learned in class, is we had Excel with our some information and a picture of ourselves, and there was a file folder for this course, and everyone made their own folders within that folder with the information for them. When you can do something similar for a business, you can create one folder for all the information of the business or the organization. Within that folder, there can be several different folders, and by using the FTP server, someone else externally can, or from different location, can access that. So what are the ethical concerns related to transmission of personal data? So when we're using data, it's always important to remain ethical and as secure as possible when working with sensitive data, especially if it's personal. We can have bank accounts, locations, SIN numbers, etc. So some of the concerns are ownership. So does the owner of the data have complete ownership? Does she really own the data? One example would be, for example, if you're investing in Bitcoin, does the platform that you're using actually allow you to own the Bitcoin, or is it just a way to store it there, but it's actually the company's cryptocurrencies? It's just a way to hold them for you. That's just an example of not actually having the ownership of something. Transparency, so anything and everything that is done to the data should be told to the owner, so they should be updated before it's been conducted if it's something that might alter the data that they own. Privacy, the organization or the individual that use the data should try their hardest to keep the data private and secured. And lastly, accessibility, so the owner should be able to access their data and any changes that have been done to it. So one way, so you can be transparent when making changes to the data. However, they should still be able to access it, just in case, for example, the company has said they're going to do one thing and they actually get approved, but then they do something else and the person doesn't have access to it, so they therefore believe that what they were told is actually what was done to their data. So we come to our conclusions. Just a quick breakthrough of all the questions. So for business and organizations, using an MFT software such as FileZilla or TrustMap might be most effective. Might give you some tools that using, for example, HTTPS or SFTP do not. Although there are various options for personal files, such as, again, SFTP and HTTPS, those are the easiest to use and highly secured, as opposed to using, for business, MFT software. So question 3, steganography can be used to decrypt, encrypt an image. Depending on the complexity of the encryption, LSB or DCTC will be used. So if you want to, pretty simple, but it can be decrypted, or if you want it more complex, you will use DCTC. We can use a JWT token and POSTMAN to access secure sites. ASP.NET Core using Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, along with POSTMAN, is a very secure approach of coding an API. XML is the best and cleanest type of data or format of the data for transferring data between locations. FileZilla is highly secure and can be shared with others using an FTP server. If you have maybe right now people working from their homes and they want to access some secure data, you can have there if you make a folder and use it and share the FTP server. Some concerns for personal data are ownership, transparency, privacy, and accessibility, which are things that should always be kept in mind when using personal data. Here are the references, 2 references I use for my information. And thank you for watching, and hope I was able to answer those questions and help the company with some of the decisions that they will be making with their approaches to various data uses.